Welcome back. Well, we just heard from Lenny Harper there about the various goings-on Jersey. A few people know this better than respected members of Jersey Parliament, Trevor and Shona Pitman. When they dared to stand up to the powers that be, they were accused of tarnishing the island's reputation. They faced smears, attacks and financial ruin by a local media and judiciary who were interconnected with the same yachting set. They were implicated in covering up hideous child abuse. I'm joined by Skype by Trevor and Shona. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Welcome.
Thanks for this opportunity for us to voice our story, because the media over here, the Jersey Evening Post, BBC and ITV have all disallowed us to give our story. So thank you.
No, do you know, it's my absolute pleasure. I was listening to an interview earlier, Shona, with you and a BBC broadcaster from BBC Jersey, and I have to say it was the most biased and savage attack I have actually heard in a long time. I thought it was the most disgusting, appalling journalism. We are going to be playing a part of that, because I think that, you know, the whole point about the People's Voice is we're set up to give people a voice, which people are not getting in mainstream media. The way you were attacked, Shona, was absolutely disgraceful. To me, it smelt wrong. With my journalistic nose, it smelt wrong. It felt like there was another agenda taking place there, and I'll stand up to anybody and say that. So tell me some of the things that you've been experiencing. One of the things that Lenny Harper said was you were absolutely fine until Trevor, Sheriff of Jersey, was on a panel to do with Lenny Harper. Can you fill me in a little bit what was taking place there?
Well, that's right. I mean, I've disagreed with government frequently, but it's when I wanted to push to do a scrutiny investigation into a review that had been done by, was known as the BDO review, into Operation Rectangle, Lenny Harper's inquiry into the abuse scandal. And because, firstly, they tried to block me doing it. Indeed, one well-known politician said it was quite wrong to start this investigation because it was just being done on the word of a pipe fitter, which was a gentleman who'd been digging and digging, and he knew there were problems. Anyway, I got it off the ground, and of course, once I exposed some of the lies that were being put about, such as Mr. Harper had wasted £7.5 million, he wasn't even responsible for more than half of the expenditure. Indeed, most of that was down to his successors. Since that day, we have been absolutely crucified, smeared on every occasion.
I mean, we've put in for a right to reply to various people on Jersey, including the Attorney General's office and Jersey government. We've received no response. There's a shock there. I know that you have just been through a pretty hideous court trial, haven't you, with the Jersey Post. We also contacted them to see if they wanted a right to reply, because you went through an appeal yesterday. Sadly for you, obviously, it failed. The Jersey Post have told us, and I actually see it as something of a veiled threat, if I can find it amongst my multitude of papers on here. And it really irritated me when I read it. And what it basically said was, we won't be contributing. I'm absolutely paraphrasing them here, but if you want to see the document, I'm more than happy to supply it. But what they said was that they wouldn't be contributing to tonight's show, but they may do after they've heard what's been said. And that to me was an absolute veiled threat. You know, I'm not on Jersey here, and we, the People's Voice, we are allowing you, the Pitmans, a voice to say your piece here. So tell me what happened. What went on with the Jersey Post?
Well, it started, the Jersey Evening Post, just 16 days after I'd been elected. Shona's been in office longer than myself, but the JP were happy to print a great big cartoon of us wrapped in banknotes, saying that we were getting 4 times the salary now that I'm made for politics. So this was completely untrue. It eventually ended up in a court case. We lost, incredibly. We then found out that a juror, there are only 2, that's a lay judge who actually decides on the facts in the case. He was absolutely criticised in a thing called the Sharp Report, which was into an abuse scandal that happened at a very exclusive school in Jersey, Victoria College.
Right. And then supported a convicted abuser, I believe. Is that correct?
Well, that's right. He refused to look at evidence against the abuser, who was a friend and colleague of his, and then he wrote glowing terms saying this paedophile had served the college with outstanding competence and conscientiousness. There may be no case to answer, and if he had to resign, he should be allowed to do so with dignity.
Quite shocking.
But the interesting thing is, Sonia, as we've just learned today, The three judges who threw out an appeal, they've actually attempted to rewrite history by saying there's no criticism of this juror, who's a man called John LeBrittle, in the Sharp report. Now, that's very easily to demonstrate that that's completely untrue. But meanwhile, we're on our way to bankruptcy and being forced out of office under the archaic Jersey law. And,
I mean, I know that you are great, you know, you help survivors of the abuse, and the problem is, presumably, if you're forced into bankruptcy, what is then going to happen in terms of helping the survivors, because you're going to struggle yourself. So do you think that's sort of the end game here, really?
I think that's partly, it's an aim of the establishment, really. They'll be glad to see us out, because both I and Trevor, especially Trevor, has raised a lot of issues with regard to the child abuse scandal over here. And basically, if we face bankruptcy, we're out of the job. That is the states of Jersey law.
There'd be two more voices silenced, which is a problem, because 95% of states members just keep their head down.
Right.
And what you've got to remember, Sonia, is why a venture like yours is so worthwhile and needed is because none of this child abuse cover-ups could have ever happened without the complicity of the media.
Absolutely.
Because they won't report it. They will not report the rewriting of history and the judge's findings today.
And this is where the interview with the BBC comes in, is that they didn't want me to talk about our reasons for appeal. And I was actually told by the managing editor of the BBC, John Gripton over here, that I could openly talk about it because they hadn't given us a voice before. We'd sent out press releases to them and other media. And as you heard yourself, I was shut up.
You have to also remember as well that obviously your viewers will not know this, but the main man there, Mr. Gripton at the BBC, it was brought to our attention that he was retweeting to his 2,000 followers a hate site set up to attack Shona.
I mean, you know, as you say, a lot of this child abuse would not have been able to have gone, you know, would not have been able to have happened, would not have been able to have gone unrecognised without a complicit media, and that is obviously, you know, it's something that we are discovering is absolutely global. It's really shocking, the sort of extent of child abuse that's taking place. But I have to say, the more and more I've been looking into Jersey and what actually took place, and the fact that our own media here, the way that they savaged Lenny Harper was actually shocking. I mean, they tried to turn him into some kind of joke, as if, you know, his findings meant absolutely nothing and amounted to a hill of beans. And it was utterly, I mean, apart from anything else, it is so disrespectful to all of the survivors of Haute de la Garenne. Of course, you know, people that you're in contact with. And one of the things that I've also become aware of, and I believe that you have some knowledge of this, is the fact that records are missing. That, you know, we can't validate who was actually there in the first place. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, the records, photos and articles that were done many years ago on the care in Jersey, done by the Jersey Evening Post, seem to have gone missing. Now there is somebody who, a care leaver, who went to the Jersey Evening Post in 2008 and was shown a binder of photos and articles, etc. And she recently went back to the Jersey Evening Post because she wanted to find some photos with some friends who'd been there, and was told by the same lady that, you know, she didn't have the photos, the binder that she originally showed the lady. And also the Jersey Archive over here, I know there's been some work done into looking into who was on the committees, for example, at Haute de la Garenne during the child abuse, and all of those records have gone. And the Jersey Library has photos of Haute de la Garenne, and I know somebody who was abused at the care home went in recently to look for the photos, and they were no longer there.
I mean, do you know, this is a familiar story because I've interviewed a lot of survivors of care home abuse, and it's amazing how many records seem to have vanished. And a lot of it is not just linked to the fact that they want to erase traces of these people there, but it's also to do with insurance issues, isn't it? It's about, you know, let's abuse them and then let's not compensate them for wrecking their lives. And that seems to have taken place. It's widespread. I'm in no doubt that has happened, and I absolutely believed it when it came to us that was happening on Jersey, because, you know, everything else, there is a clear conspiracy that appears to have taken place, and the fact is that the other side of this are not prepared to engage with us in any way, shape or form. Why do you even want to remain on Jersey, seriously? Because they've made your life hell, haven't they?
Well, they've tried to destroy us, as they've done, and Mr. Harper, who's really like a hero for the victims, and he deserves huge credit. As you say, he was completely trashed. They've tried to make him some sort of comedy figure and grown power. But there's a common thread. As soon as you put your heads above the parapet, you start rocking the boat, you get crucified, you'll get rubbished. But the issue you're talking about with missing files, I mean, someone Shona has been trying to help, a victim. Now, he made a statement in the 80s. Mr. Harper could confirm that there's very good evidence to suggest that was made. It's vanished. And in fact, it's got to the stage where at the moment he's actually been threatened with being prosecuted if he doesn't withdraw his complaints. And again, recently I was contacted by a gentleman who was working for education. He came across, completely to his amazement, of 5 boxes of files and letters from lawyers, letters from concerned parents about children in Hope Le Grand. He didn't know what to do. They took them up to Property Holdings, which is a department in Jersey, and we cannot trace what's happened to those 5 boxes of letters.
Well, the big problem there, of course, is that there's an inquiry taking place next year. It's been delayed, hasn't it? Because the original person who was going to do it had a heart attack, I believe, and it's been delayed until next year. The problem is, how can you actually have an inquiry into what went on Jersey without files? I'm a bit, you know, it's like it's quite confusing. How is this going to happen? And it's an absolute muddle that's been created. And I thank God for people like you who are prepared to keep wading through the mud, frankly, because it's an absolute nightmare. But you are absolutely in the thick of it, you know, and it just must be quite horrendous. What do you think is going to happen ultimately for the survivors of this abuse? Do you think that the intention is just to let it go away and continue the cover-up?
Well, it's funny, isn't it, that anybody speaks out, and Mr. Hemmings has been rubbished over here by our own media.
Will do, yeah.
But he was talking about human rights, and it was interesting with what's happening on this case at Warren, where the judges, they criticised us for trying to involve the Justice Minister in the UK and told us we should go down the appeal route. But then actually they said, well, the appeal route, we're not interested in whether a juror was fit to hold office, a lay judge or not. So what that actually does, Sonia, in human rights, if everything impacts on your human rights, you've got to have a potential remedy. But that's actually denied here. So all we can do is go back to the very person, our bailiff, the chief judge, who allowed all this to happen. So you can't basically win it. It's like having been raped, you again go back to the rapist to ask for some kind of, you know, can you make it all right? It's quite absurd. And we're politicians with a voice, but imagine these victims if they've got no one to speak up from.
Well, absolutely. You know, we had a very interesting interview yesterday with Michael Shrimpton, a barrister. I don't know if you're familiar with Michael. Michael has plenty to say about plenty, and one of the things that he said, and he was quite categoric about it, was Edward Heath, obviously former British Prime Minister, would regularly come over to Jersey, have children procured by Jimmy Savile from Hutt de la Garenne, taken to his boat. These children would be, this was according to Michael Shrimpton's testimony yesterday, these children would be taken to Edward Heath's boat, they would be buggered and sodomised, they would be killed, and they would be dispatched and dispensed with. And that was one of the reasons why Lenny Harper was unable to find reference to that, because the children were being taken out of the orphanage. Are you aware of anything to do with Edward Heath or Jimmy Savile?
Well, we're aware of those allegations. I am certainly in the knowledge that Mr. Heath apparently spent so much time in Jersey that the police actually had to have in place special plans in case he passed away while he was here.
Extraordinary.
I personally know more than that, but those rumours that you talk about are certainly very well known.
Are they very well, and have they been for a long time?
Indeed, and what's interesting in Jersey is that the more you start to dig, I mean, I think I was quite aware when I came into politics because Shona had already been a politician for 3 years, but I've been absolutely shocked and horrified as to the way this island works because Jersey is a great place. It's just been ruined by a few powerful people.
Right.
Shona's own problems probably started, as she'll tell you, when she brought away.
Yes, and it comes back to what you were talking about with John, you know, and that you can't touch these people at the top.
Right.
In 2008, I brought a vote of no confidence in the then bailiff, Sir Philip Balash, and
right.
bailiff over here is the Chief Judge and the Parliamentary Speaker. Right. But when he was Attorney General, he was also responsible for the honorary police over here.
Right.
And he actually allowed, initially he didn't know, but when he was informed, he allowed a convicted paedophile to work as an honorary policeman.
It's like a special constable.
I mean, I should say that we did actually obviously approach him today, Philip Ballard, to see if he would give him a right to reply. Again, shocker, no response. Almost didn't expect one, in all honesty, but the whole point about the People's Voice is to give everybody a right to reply, and we still welcome it. I know Jersey Post, you're watching, so hello to you all out there. But, you know, I think it's really important that you are prepared to speak up. Are you not concerned about your safety?
Well, I was involved. You know, I actually initiated the online petition that helped get Leah Goodman back into the island. And the hate that she received from certain people, you've got to be worried. I mean, Shona and myself are strong people, but we've had threats and we get smears. It's not very nice, you know. And there's a joke over here that most politicians are like, I'm a celebrity, keep me in government. Well, we're a couple of the perhaps 4 or 5 who speak out. And gradually we're being eliminated.
Right.
And the way I could put it best is we don't actually shoot people over here, but it's sort of death without assassination.
Right.
They just ruin you and make sure you can't function.
Right.
And doing that, as Shona said, the people who really suffer are those victims.